Okay, we are now on the third part. We have this time we're talking about inferential statistics. Okay, we this one involves analyzing data from a sample to make conclusions about a population, and it helps in hypothesis testing, estimating population parameters, and identifying relationships between variables. Also, we use it in analyzing data, predicting outcomes, and ensuring system reliability and performance. So we have a lot of applications in inferential statistics, and actually, there are several options that we can do. Okay, so by using sample data, engineers can make informed decisions about the design, functionality, and equality of electronic systems, components, and systems. And then, okay, I'm bothered by my. All right. Okay. And then when it comes to system modeling, we can use inferential statistics to build models and compare data samples to previous research. Okay, so we can make use of regression models actually for whatever system we are building. But in quality engineering, we can use inferential statistics to test a small sample of the products to ensure the batch meets specifications. Like, how sure are we that this batch of produced out products have this certain of mean, or they fall within this uh, uh, value of our mean. Okay, so meaning they don't vary significantly from this mean. Okay, so we test that using some statistical tools, uh, or if you want, you can do that manually. Now, before performing hypothesis testing, it is crucial to decide whether to use a parametric test or a non-parametric test. And that is based on the nature of data, including its distribution and sample size. Like what I said earlier, our focus right now is what normal, okay, normal distribution. So we are testing for the normality of our distribution first, so that we can use so that we are confident that it's safe to use parametric test. Okay, otherwise you have no choice but to use a non-parametric test, which is more complicated than parametric test, and most of them are not available on Excel. Okay, so some of the characteristics of a normal distribution of as much as possible, the mean, median, and mode are equal or approaching equal. Okay, point zero something difference could be disregarded. Okay, at the same time, the when you plot them using what we just like what we did earlier, when you plot the normal distribution, then you'll see the left and right sides are symmetrical. Okay, so in other words, there's no skew. You can also see that in the result of your descriptive statistics that the skew is zero or almost zero, right? And also we have the asymptotic tail, meaning the asymptotes will never touch the tail. Okay, so the meaning you don't have values that are um, in the distribution. There's no distribution that is negative or exactly equals to zero. Okay, it will never be equal to zero, but approaching only. Okay, so we have this aside from symmetry, the bell shape. We can also test the if there are constant, if there's constant variance. Okay. Also, we can check if there are outliers. If there are, then we have to get rid of them. Okay, and then interdependence and sample size. Right. So that's for our descriptives. If uh, checking for the normality of our data. So there are many types. There are many ways to test the normality actually using this advanced testing. Okay, like the Shapiro-Wilk test. I think this is one of the most popular one. Okay, other options are the called. Just read them. I cannot pronounce. I might not be able to pronounce them correctly. Okay, so they have their respective description and then test statistic and their common use. Okay, so you can take a screenshot of it. Okay. And then, just in case you wonder what are some common parametric tests and non-parametric tests, first note that the parametric tests are those that assume that the data follows a normal distribution. Okay, so again, we can only use a parametric test if our data set is normal, or our the distribution of our data is normal, or at least approaching normal. Okay, so these tests are powerful when the assumptions are about the data. When the assumptions about our data, meaning the normality of our data, are valid. Okay. On the other hand, we have the non-parametric tests, wherein we do not assume distribution for the data, and this is ideal for small sample sizes, non-normal data, or get ordinal or categorical data. So, meaning parametric tests normally if we have numerical data, like if we have categorical data, we are able to convert them into their respective, or not really convert, represent them in terms of numerical data, like their corresponding frequencies. Okay, so here, as you can see, is hypothesis testing. We check first, does it follow, does our data set follow normal distribution? Yes or no? If no, then no choice. You have to choose one of the said one of these non-parametric tests. Okay, but if it's yes, you have confirmed they follow a normal distribution, then we can use a parametric test based on our number of samples and the number of groups that we test. Okay, first, number of samples. If we have more than one, uh, okay, here, if we have one sample only, then we check if we know the variance. Then if we don't know, then that's we use the t-test. But if we know the variance, then we can use z-test instead, which is easier compared to t-test. Okay. But if our number of samples, meaning for example, we have sample 1, sample 2, sample 3. We have more than one samples, especially when we compare these samples to each other. Then our type of analysis could be in terms of difference. Okay? Or sometimes you want to check whether our sample 1 and sample 2 has a relationship with each other. Meaning, sample 1 could represent a certain variable, and sample 2 can represent another variable. And we can check whether they have a relationship with each other. Okay, and that would be correlation. So if our purpose is to compare and see that if there's a significant difference, then we check first, are your samples paired or not? Meaning, is it a before and after? If it's a before and after type of scenario, meaning we are getting data from exactly the same set of respondents. Okay, especially for in the academic purposes, we have the same students being tested on. Okay, so if that's the case, then we use a paired t-test. But if not, we have the option to choose either z-test or the two group or the individual t-test. So here, the main difference here, by the way, if we have since we are assuming that data set is normal, then we are free to choose either of the two. Okay, but if I think the rule of thumb is 30. If it is at least 30, then that's we're now safe to use the easier one. Okay, which is the Z test. But if it's less than 30, it will be easier or it will be safer to use T test instead, two group or individual T test. Okay, so this is I think we discussed this already in our module 2. So this is just a quick recap, and I hope you have recalled this. So let's talk about Z-test and T-test first. Z-test, you can do it in Excel, okay? Whether you are concerned with one sample or two samples. We're going to have a demo for this in a separate video. Okay, we use these normally for large samples with known variance. I think these are two conditions that we must remember. Large samples, if the distribution is normal, then we don't have a quota anymore. But if we if our distribution is barely or just almost normal, then we check our sample size. If it's at least 30, then it's that's the time it's safe to use Z-test. Okay, using the data analysis toolpath, you just go to data analysis and then select Z-test for two sample for means. Okay, and then we're going to have a demo for this. All right. Why do we have a box plot here? To one of the main reasons um, we okay, this is just a side note. Um, Z-test alone could not be enough, especially if you're unsure whether your data set is okay or not. Okay, especially in the data cleaning stage before you conduct this type of test, it would be best to perform um, uh, it would be best to plot first our data set and see whether we have outliers or not. Okay. As mentioned earlier, one of the main ways to check our outliers is using the box plots, okay, or also known in Excel as the box and whisker plot. Okay, so I think the quartile, um, what do you call it? Excel is using the quartile type of box plot. Okay, because it only has one whisker, upper whisker, and a lower whisker. Unlike uh, uh, in this version, we have several um, parts of our whiskers. Okay, so in Excel, I think this one is being used. Here we have the median as the center of the box. This line. Okay, we have the 25 percentile or the I think the Q1 and the Q3. Q1 here as the bottom and Q3 is the top. Okay, and outside the box are somewhat like our margin already. So this is below here is Q1 minus 1.5 of our IQR. Okay, while this limit, meaning these are our limits. The lower limit is just Q1 minus 1.5 of IQR, while Q3 is 1.5 of our IQR. I mean, 1.5 and Q3 plus 1.5 of our IQR. Okay, just in case you forgot what's IQR, just take the difference of Q3 and Q1. Okay, so that's basically a box plot or box and whisker plot. They are excellent tools for visualizing the spread, central tendency, and variability of data. They provide graphical representation of data based on 5 key metrics. Okay, we mentioned the Q1, the Q3, where we get the Q1 and Q3 where we get the IQR, and then we have the median or our Q2, and then we have the minimum and maximum. So this is the minimum, this is the Q1, the median, the Q3, and the maximum. So beyond this part, anything that goes beyond, whether above or below, are considered outliers. So if you see points plotted outside here, okay, they are already outliers. And if you see outliers, then best thing to do is to remove them. Okay, or double check why are they outliers. Maybe they just got corrupted along the way. So check if you can repair them. But if not, so another option, of course, we have the t-test as mentioned earlier. This time we are comparing the means. We are not concerned anymore since we have a degree of freedom. No. We have a critical value, a corresponding critical value for each degree of freedom, which is basically based on the sample size. Okay, so it follows that each sample size has a corresponding set of critical values. Okay, of course, given our significance value or the alpha. Right now, what's in here? So we can do a one sample test in Excel, but using the data analysis toolpack, you can instantly create a two-tailed test. I mean a two sample test. Okay, one sample test here. You do it. You use formula, but in two sample tests, you just use the data analysis toolpack. Okay, so we have a note here regarding one sample and paired t-test. So can be read. Okay, we already talked about it during the module. Okay, so now that we have our scores or these results, okay, for me, I always highlight this part and whether we are conducting a one-tailed or a two-tailed test. So, for example, if we are conducting uh, okay, so here, for example, we have alpha equals to 0.10, meaning our significance value is 0.10. If this is a one-tailed, then we choose this one, either one-tailed or a left-tailed or a right-tailed. Then this will be our critical value. We have one critical value only. So if left-tailed, then this should be negative. If right-tailed, then this should be positive. Okay, and if it's two-tailed, we follow the other one instead. Okay, 1.66. And this will be a pair of values. So we have the negative 1.66 here and the positive 1.66. So just like this one, assuming this is a two-tailed test, then we compare our t-stat with this one. Okay, so if you plot that, we check whether this value is between negative 2.3 and positive 2.3. So if it isn't, which is, as you can see, it's negative, it's way beyond to the left. So we cannot accept that. So it's way beyond to the left. So it's outside our acceptance region, meaning we reject that and then we reject our corresponding null hypothesis for it. Okay, and as you can see, we have our the same sample size but different significance level. Actually, this is the default one, 0.05. If the problem says nothing about the significance level to be used, then we assume that's 0.05. Okay, that's the default. Okay, so as you can see, when we change our alpha, we now have a new set of critical values. Same thing when we have our 0.01 alpha here. Okay, so it's important to check whether we are conducting a one-tailed or a two-tailed test. Okay. And I think, all right, so we're almost done. Let's continue this in the next. Okay, let's talk about ANOVA and chi-square before we continue with the last one, regression. And so ANOVA is a quite advanced one, and this is more like um, this is more recommended for engineering applications. So this is more like a real world scenario already. We use this to compare the means across multiple groups because in reality, that's most of the scenarios are involving multiple groups, like the power efficiency of devices from different suppliers. Okay, so when we use our data analysis toolpack for ANOVA testing, we can choose either a single factor or a two-factor with replication, and we also have the two-factor without replication. So if we use single factor, we have something like this, and just like in t-test, we just look for the test statistic and the critical value. Okay. Same thing with two factor. We are just looking for the I think this is the test statistic. Okay. And then the critical values. Okay. So I'm not sure if this is complete. Maybe there's another part that has been cropped out. Anyway, we're going to demo this in our in a separate and chi-square, this is the simplest, I think, simplest non-parametric test because we no longer make use of numerical data here. Instead, we have are categorical data that we compare in terms of frequencies. Okay, like for example, we have halls A, B, C, and D, and then we have um, uh, the counts of chairs, tables, stools for each hall. Okay, so maybe what we want here is to I don't know. Okay, I don't have the context, so I'm just guessing. Maybe we want to conclude whether hall A has more chairs um, or the choice of the hall has an significant association with the uh, choice or inclusion of chairs, stools, and tables. That's a possible hypothesis. I'm not sure. I don't have the context, but anyway, in Excel, we can have the corresponding, once we have the table, we can have the corresponding value for that using this formula. Yeah, it's no longer part of our data analysis toolpack, by the way. We just use the formula. Okay, but first we have to establish our observed table and our expected table. So just like here, we have the observed results and the expected results. Out of that, we have this final chi-square table wherein we can get our test statistic, which is in this case is, this is the total. In this case, the chi-square p-value is 0.27. Right? So out of that, we can get the critical values using some formula in Excel, and that's it. So that's basically chi-square, and let's see if we can demo this in our sample video. Okay, so that would be all for this part. See you in the next one.